Hello to anyone watching this. Nintendo has had an absolutely wild October. Like, every single week, apart from, obviously Mario Party's release week, people have been expecting the big Switch 2 news, only to be blindsided by something completely different, and, in my opinion, something probably better, at least for the moment. And I have been privileged, or at the very least lucky enough, to have been able to buy the Nintendo Alarmo, get invited into the Playtest program, and download the music app. And I just feel like there's a lot to talk about with all of them, so today I just wanted to go through all of my thoughts about each of these things, Hopefully this will be a good time capsule to one of the weirdest months Nintendo has had in a good long time. So let's take this all chronologically. Between watching preview videos of Mario Party Jamboree, I was still keeping up with what Nintendo was talking about on Twitter, I just still love the announcement to release schedule that the original Switch had, First trailer in October, came out in March. That just felt right, and I was fully expecting that to happen again, unless of course Nintendo didn't want to, in which case I'd be equally understanding. So to suddenly see an alarm clock get announced instead of a new console, I was taken aback, I was laughing, I was having fun, and then I actually watched a trailer and realised that I'd probably get way too much out of the new Alarmo. Like, I did already have an alarm clock, that I already have an entire Pavlovian response to hearing, and all of that, but there was just something so interesting about putting the Nintendo spin on it, especially seeing that various scenes from games were the alarm. It just felt like it would be a lot more interesting and a lot less harsh in general, especially seeing that you could pick between different volumes of the alarm. That all seemed really, compelling, but what drew me in the most was its sleep tracking. Like, I have kind of wanted an Apple Watch for a bit now, but I know I wouldn't get that much out of it, so to have something that would be able to track my sleep in a non-creepy way, I just felt like that would be something that would be useful to me. And also just the entire motion sensor gimmick, I just had complete faith that it would work because this is Nintendo and they somehow always make these things work. My only real possible reservations were what the potential price would be, because, that's always a nerve-wracking thing with Nintendo. And also just seeing the starting lineup of games. None of them are my absolute favourite. I've sort of got to just default to Mario Odyssey, and I'd be happy with that, but just seeing that both Mario Kart 8 and Animal Crossing were both going to be some way, somehow, free DLC for a bloody alarm clock, that somehow made me less interested and more interested, just to see what kind of weird and wonderful collection of games would have their own set of scenes by the end of the alarm clock's life, which I've only just said alarm clock's life for the first time, and I am now genuinely worried that they will somehow cut off support for the alarm clock, even though not all of its features are online focused, but now I'm slightly scared, so that's great. But anyway, at the end of the trailer they say that it's available right away at the Nintendo NY store, and luckily before I can even think about buying a plane ticket, they also say it's going to be available within the next few days, exclusively for Switch Online members. And by the next day it's already available for purchase, and it is £90, which I'm not an expert on clock pricings, but multiple scenes for multiple games, a digital screen, motion tracking, sleep tracking, it probably all adds up. I was happy to buy it just because it's such a unique product that I genuinely think will enhance my sleep. It just feels like a no-brainer for me. And also the fact that it's only available for Switch Online members does make me feel like I'm part of a bit of an exclusive club, even though everyone has Switch Online at this point. It's more about feeling exclusive for actually wanting to buy it, but it's exclusive nonetheless. So once I ordered it, I just had to wait a few days for it to arrive, and luckily I could keep myself busy during that time by thinking about what exactly the playtest program is all about. Like, it was announced the same day as the Alarmo, but I couldn't think of a good transition into talking about it until now. Like, this was just a completely random and very ominous tweet posted later on the Alarmo announcement day, but at the same time, I immediately opened up the applying page and got myself ready to apply as soon as possible. Like, yeah, 10,000 isn't the most amount of spaces, but surely if I just apply within the first few minutes, I'll be absolutely fine getting a spot. Like, there was no telling what this would be, you know, it could be the second coming of the Nintendo Badge Arcade, it could be a completely new game, it could be online GameCube games, it could be anything, but just knowing that Nintendo themselves are doing a playtest, something that they've never really done before, it was intriguing, and I definitely wanted to get in on it if I was so lucky. So I patiently waited for the time to tick over to 4 o'clock the next day, got back on that website, just had to sign into my Nintendo account, and I was accepted! I actually got in, like, oh my god, yay, I'm one of 10,000! It didn't give me a number, but just the fact that I was in there within the first few seconds, like, surely I was part of the first 100 or something, and it would take a good few hours for the rest of the slots to fill, but I got in there quick, I got my spot, I was happy. But oh my god, did it turn out to be such a blessing that I am such an obsessive fan, because looking on Twitter the minute after, I saw countless people saying that they were too late, that all the slots had already filled, they had no chance, and I just felt even more lucky. Like, there were people dying to get into this, and I was actually one of the people. I just felt so special, like nothing like this has ever happened to me before. I just felt like a part of an even more exclusive club than ever, and I was so excited to see what I would have in store within the next couple weeks. You know, I was ready to play this thing every day until it stopped working. But all I could do for now was wait until the download day on the 21st. You know, I didn't spend too much time thinking about what exactly it could be, because I just knew I'd get myself too excited. You know, this is Nintendo, they do whatever they want, whenever they want. I knew that this was going to be something probably unorthodox that I shouldn't think too much about, and just enjoy the ride whenever it starts. So, to kill time waiting for that, the Alarmo arrived. So to properly be able to talk about the Alarmo in its natural habitat, I am going to have to expose my bedside table. I hope nothing looks too conspicuous or dusty, and I also have my hand to help show everything off. Don't mind all the eczema, I do put cream on it, I try to take care of it, I just break out way too easily. Oh, what? I had to talk about the eczema. You know how it is, I get loads of comments patronising me about it. Oh yeah, and to you. But anyway, I'm obviously unable to show the full setup process, as, you know, that's already been complete, but it was surprisingly simple. Like, instantly the motion tracking worked really well to pick up when you're getting up, getting down, lying there. I did just have a few issues at one part of it, like trying to track me laying down for a few seconds, but I think that's more on me having way too many pillows on my bed, and also unplugging it, thinking that it was like fully charged when it turns out it has to be wired at all times, which is a bit annoying because I don't have the best like wire space to put it on my bedside table, but I've made it work in the end. So I think because I unplugged it and plugged it back in, it needed a few seconds to recalibrate what was happening, but I got there in the end. Everything was working, it was fully tracking me, and yeah, I was already having a great time just watching Mario run around. It is really endearing that you can just move upwards and watch Mario jump. In terms of all the other features of the clock, I don't use the hourly chimes because I know they would get on my tits way too quickly, and I did mess around with the options at the start, and I have found a nice consistent way that I like to have everything displayed, and the only real option you have on the main screen is to just turn up the volume of all the noises that you make, which I naturally put to max volume because these are really nice noises I enjoy hearing at any time of day. There is also, of course, the records, which are a bit of a letdown. Like, I use my bed as basically my office space. Like, I'm talking to you from my bed right now, and this is being counted as sleep. Like, I have got 20 hours of sleep documented on some days. Like, I was productive on those days, don't worry. It's just, it tracks basically being in bed as sleeping, which is a letdown, but the fact that it tracks movement properly and stuff like that, it still feels like I can get a good report of what's happening. It's just not as in-depth as I was hoping for, and it just doesn't work the way that I wanted to. But, you know, like I said, the fact that I do basically work from my bed, if I want to really make it sound more important than it is, I can't be surprised. The only other kind of disappointing feature is the sleepy sounds. Because, like I said, I'm sat in my bed a lot, once it ticks past the time that I asked them to play, it'll often just pick me up sitting in bed and start jump scaring me with the weird Mario Void music, which is always really jarring. And if I manage to avoid that and get into bed to wanting the sleepy sounds to play, they just don't. Like, so it's picked me up being in bed after I set the sleepy sounds to play on those occasions, but it didn't play them, and then it doesn't play them when I actually get into bed after that time. It just doesn't really add up for me. Like, the feature is quirky enough, like I'm not going to turn it off. I am starting to get more accustomed to hearing the noise at a specific random time, but it just could work better considering how well all the other motion tracking stuff generally is in terms of, you know, picking up when you're actually in bed. But in general, it is easy to use. The big button on the top works well as a dial to scroll through different options, and just having a back and a mail button as well, you get everything you need to. You know, you can't exactly play games on this thing unless you mod it, and, you know, I'm not gonna mod it, so I got what I paid for and I'm happy with it. But now it's time to get into the actual alarm features. So luckily I needed the alarm for work the day after I got it, so I went to go set it all up. I put it on the quietest setting because I get way too jarred by a normal alarm clock going off. You know, I just wanted something smoother and calmer, and in general I wake up to relatively moderate noises quite well. So I went to bed, and several hours later I heard a weird faint murmuring that just sounded like a quiet conversation. It wasn't really waking me up until I started to hear like Yoshi noises, and I was like, oh god, yeah, Mario alarm, and sprung up, and at least I can say the motion tracking worked well, even though I set my alarm for 8 and it was bloody well 5 past. But, you know, I thought that was on me. Like, I did put it on the quietest setting, and it said that was for people who want to be very gently woken up, and that's not what I was looking for. Like, I still want to get up as soon as I hear it. I just didn't think I'd need to have it that loud. So I went to go try it on the big, hard, go off, we're gonna scream at you after 20 minutes setting, thinking that it would at least be louder the next time I needed the alarm. And I mean, it kind of was. I heard the murmuring conversation sooner, but at the same time, it was 1/4 when I woke up, so clearly I didn't hear it any easier, and if I'd have just waited 5 more minutes, I would have had Bowser screaming at me, which, that's a fantasy. Like, I need to wake up for work, not be, like, aroused vaguely. That's really my main problem with it all. The actual alarms themselves simply aren't loud enough, and you only get the big, loud, screamy ones after 20 minutes. Like, that's a good default setting for that, but you really should be able to change how long it takes for that really loud one to appear. Like, I want it instantly. I want to get up. I don't want to have to wait 20 minutes to be properly told that. But you know, the motion tracking works great. Like, I literally just have to sit up and it actually turns off, which is always a nice little marvel. Although one day that I used it, I was sort of tossing and turning a bit, and I flicked my leg, and I heard, like, one of the sensors, like, one of the sound prompts go off. So I kept flicking my leg and actually turned off the alarm doing that, which is just a bit of fun more than anything else. I quite enjoyed doing it like that. You know, it does take a few minutes for it to go off again, so I can just slink out of bed straight after. You know, that works. But yeah, overall, I would say this is a good product. It's high quality, it's got a good LED screen that is really good at detecting when you're actually in front of it. Like, it will purposefully dim and brighten the lights depending on whether it can tell if you're actually looking at it, which is way more clever than I could have possibly expected. It's just like I said, the alarms need to be louder. Like, I don't think I'm going to develop a nasty Pavlovian response to it because I can randomise what scene plays every day, you know? It keeps it fresh before I can develop any sort of primal horror to it. I'm really not good at tech reviews. I probably shouldn't do any more after this. It's just, you know, the Alarmo's relevant right now, but I've enjoyed nattering about it, and who knows, it could give you a better perspective on whether you want to buy it. So, let's move on to the playtest program. Now, obviously I'm not allowed to say anything, and I won't say anything because I want this video to just, like, exist. So, I'm gonna be just using a lot of very, very general language. I'm just gonna be using the word thing over and over, and hopefully you can just sort of more understand the vibes that I got from the game rather than like what the game actually is, and that should hopefully appease Nintendo enough. So on the 21st, the Playtest website updated with a general idea of what the program's going to be, and I think I would have maybe had more context to it all if they didn't do this, because the things that they showed seemed really confusing, overly experimental, just not like anything you've seen from Nintendo before, in a way that's not as endearing as a new IP like Splatoon or ARMS. It just sort of seemed like something that they threw together because they had spare time and wanted to see if it could go anywhere, rather than an actual big concept for something. But I was still excited to try this new Nintendo thing, so I waited till later in the week. I had it downloaded and played it on the first day, and I was enjoying it. Like, basically, you have a thing, and you take it to a place, and you use the thing to do a thing, and it's co-op with, like, loads of people in the same place, and you keep thinging with your thing until you're done in your place. That's an easy description for a lot of games, but you keep thinging until you finish, and I enjoyed thinging. Thinging was quite fun in this game, and finding the best way to thing was extremely compelling, and I was enjoying myself in just this one place. But then you go back to sort of your main place, and this is where it started to fall apart, because you sort of go around and get things to thing better, but I just started getting confused because you can acquire things, but they don't show you how to use those things very efficiently. Like, there's not many good tutorials. I was legitimately stuck for 5 minutes on what amounted to just putting an item on and then standing in a certain place. Like, that took me 5 minutes to figure out what was happening. Like, there's not enough tutorials here to justify itself, even though it's quite simple in a lot of ways. So I was starting to get a bit upset there, but then when I went to do the thing in a different place, I couldn't go to a different place. When I went to the place to get to a different place, I could only go to the same place I was on before. I couldn't go to a different place. And I went back into the game on multiple days and I still could not go anywhere else. You're stuck in this one place, and there are special places you can go to, but you're meant to take your thing with you to these places, but I didn't know how to get my thing to the place where I could go to these special places, so that's useless. So I'm just stuck. I can't go anywhere else. I can't do any more of the thing in the first place I was in. And it expects you to play every day and report back to them. But it's like, what do I report back? That I upset myself by not being able to go to a new place? Like, I don't get it. I really don't get what any of this is for. This is clearly a very early beta. And I mean that in a very derogatory way, to be honest. It doesn't feel finished. It doesn't feel like it properly accommodates the sort of players that this will have. So it's very disappointing overall. I didn't get all too much out of it, personally. And I hope that I've been able to explain it in a way that can help you understand why, even if you've not watched any of the illegally uploaded footage of it. There are different aspects to it all that I think other people will get a lot out of, but I don't get a lot out of it. And it was quite clearly explained that this would be a major part of it all, but still, it's not really for me. I've already seen how other people get a lot of use out of it, but not me at all. And I think a lot of other people are feeling the same way as me, because I tried going back in a couple days ago to try and get to a different place, and I can only find one person in the main place area. It's meant to be like a hub. So people have clearly given up on it. I'm almost tempted to go and give another daily update just to like diss the developers, but I don't want my Switch Online account to be shut down or something. So on the first day I just gave a very sincere, upset update to them, and I think that's all I can be asked to do. So yeah, the playtest has been a bit of a bust. I don't even see people really talking about it. Like, this should be one of the biggest gaming things of the year, to be honest, outside of any proper new console announcements, but it's just amounted to nothing really, because they simply didn't make it compelling and give people a proper reason to play it every day. So they sort of buggered themselves over on this seemingly golden goose, which is a massive shame, but still, I was one of 10,000 people who got to experience it, so I'm lucky, I think. So let's move straight on to the end of the month. Now, this last week, it felt like something was being quite viscerally announced every single day, from a 12-minute, basically Nintendo Direct Mini for Pocket Camp Complete, to the N64 Mature app finally getting some more games, to Xenoblade X coming out at the exact time and day that people thought the Switch 2 would be announced. Like, I already thought that was enough for the week. I thought, like, as a joke, there would be something else to announce, and then suddenly at 10 o'clock, I've just finished watching my big brother, Nintendo Music app. Like, I thought that was just some fan joke. Like, I never thought Nintendo would actually do some solid means for people to listen to all of their music. But they just went and announced it and released it within the hour, just out of nowhere, casually, on Halloween Eve. And it's like, I'm totally up for that. Like, trying to find the exact rip of Nintendo music that you want is an absolute bitch on YouTube, and obviously that's partly Nintendo's fault, but just in general, especially trying to find like Mario Party Jamboree music soon after release, there's no consistent playlist that feels like it has every single song in the game, you know? So to potentially have that on a convenient app, it's just perfect for me. Like, I don't even have Spotify, so this Nintendo Music app feels like the most modern, funky, fresh thing I've experienced in a long while, and I'm really loving it, but I do still have plenty to bitch about. But let's get through all my other positives first. The search feature on this is perfect. It just straight away shows you every game by platform. You can also find it by release date, or just generally when they were added. It's perfectly convenient. You just click on the game, you get recommended the top tracks, you can go straight to all tracks, which I go for. Like, top tracks is so subjective. Like, for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for example, the top tracks don't include the battle maps, just regular tracks, and that's weird and sort of a diss to battle mode. So I just go straight to all tracks and I find what I want. And the My Music section has everything I need. Just create a playlist, have a favourite playlist, done, sorted. Got my Mario Kart bops, got my Wintertime bops, probably going to find more types of bops like Mario platformers and all of that. You know, it has everything that I need to be able to enjoy it to its fullest. There are even plenty of features that I have no use for, but will probably end up using anyway for fun. Like, the spoiler block is a really interesting feature. Like, even though it completely blocks off everything about a game, like you can't pick basically any songs from it if you put on a spoiler block, it is still a good feature to have for those that need it. Like, even though I couldn't care less about spoilers, you know, I might just see what it looks like someday. And I can never be asked to download many things. Like, I have YouTube Premium, I'm one of those weirdos, and on my laptop I just download funny videos for if like the internet goes down forever. I can just like watch funny things for a while, and on my phone I have like music saved so that I can take my music anywhere. So I don't get that much from downloading anyway, so that's not going to do much for me on here especially, but it's still a nice feature to have and I may use it someday. But now it's time to get on to my big gripes with all of this, starting with the game selection. Like, I do think if you were going to pick the 22 Nintendo games / menus as of October 2024, I do think this is a good mix to represent enough of Nintendo. It's just so limiting, and it really doesn't feel like you get all the games you could want. Like, especially having 5 NES and Game Boy games, that just feels entirely useless for me. Like, they uploaded these cute little trailers showing off like, oh, look at how you can move to the music, and it's like, the first woman's jogging along to Jump Up Superstars, so that's fair enough. But literally while I was watching I was thinking, yeah, but you can't say anyone will do the same with the 8-bit music, and they just immediately cut to some bastard in the gym working out to Stop Tomorrow, and I was like, oh, okay, you can apparently. And it's just like, that's not a thing. Who actually is going to jam to any NES or Game Boy songs using this? Like, for preservation and for like a cute little treat if I'm feeling bored, I'm happy to take NES and Game Boy games, but if they're being added at any point, I'd want them to come in bulk, so it's like plenty to explore, because most of these just have like 8 to 10 songs. And especially the fact that these are 4 out of 22 initial games, it just feels a bit unbalanced at the end of the day. You know, I just really hope that we can start getting more GameCube and Wii games. I would say Wii U games, but the Switch is probably going to cover that fine, but maybe in the future they could add on a feature where it's similar to top tracks, but it's Wii U tracks, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for example. It'll just have all the Wii U tracks, and that's it. You know, just a way to separate it. That would be nice, but there's no 3DS for some reason. There's just so much more that needs to be added before you can call this a truly good selection of games, you know? But it does seem like after just a few days at time of recording, we may be getting games at an acceptable pace, because literally 2 days after release we got Mario Wonder, which is lovely, but that's one game. It's one Switch game, but it's still one game. So I hope that when they do these, hopefully 2 or 3 drops a week, it's either one Switch game, 2 Wii GameCube games, 4 or 5 Game Boy Advance down to NES games, you know? That's the sort of drop weight I would expect. Like, I don't know how hard it is to port over all of these songs in the exact crisp condition that they are, and I do appreciate that getting the perfect screenshot for each of these songs might be a bit tricky, but I'm sorry, I just refuse to believe it'd be that hard to add games at a reasonable pace. Like, we do know that there are a load of really interesting games coming. Like, I'm excited for Wii Sports, even though I wish it could be bundled in with the Wii Sports Resort. Like, that was a proper collection on Wii on one disc, so why not have it like that here? But, you know, there is plenty of optimism for what's going to be added to the future right now. We've just got to really hope that it's at a really, really good pace. Like, by Christmas, I want to be jamming out to the 50th or 75th or 80th. I don't know how many they'd add if it was 2 a week sort of numbers here, because at launch, like I've been, there's just not enough at launch, you know? Like, even the classic games they picked, it feels like they could have made more interesting choices, like, especially for the GBA. Like, why Fire Emblem? Why not something that had a much more consistently peppy soundtrack? Like, the GBA has really good chiptune songs. Like, maybe it would be too much to have another Mario Kart game, but Super Circuit had a really amazing soundtrack. So, I don't know, it's just sort of a bit of a rocky starting selection either way. But my other main problem is that some of these games simply don't have their complete soundtracks. Like, going straight for Mario Kart again, you get all of the main track themes, you get all of the variants on track themes, like Animal Crossing Seasons, Singapore Chinatown, all that, but you don't get the front-running versions of songs, the final lap versions of songs, or the final lap front-running versions of songs, and that's just a letdown. Like, yeah, it'd probably clog up the amount of songs, but New Horizons has 400. It has all of the Clear Day, Rainy Day, Snowy Day songs, all of KK's instrumental and acoustic performances of all of his songs. Like, they went out of their way for everything in New Horizons, so why not Mario Kart as well? It just doesn't really add up. Like, I wouldn't listen to the final lap variants of songs all too much, but the front-running songs can really add a lot to so many of these tracks, and especially putting them all into my Mario Kart playlist and putting it on shuffle, like, having the front-running variant of a song feels really different, and it'd really spice it all up. So it's just such a shame that they just can't include all the variants of these songs for some reason. So having the soundtracks incomplete in general is a real letdown, but this is still just version 1.0. You never know what the future may hold. But those are my only real gripes with the service, and like I said, at least with the game list, that's only going to improve in future. Like, I'm sure in about a month's time I won't even be thinking about the launch lineup, I'll just be enjoying banger after banger. And there's just something about this app that fills me with so much optimism. Like, its sleek layout and easy access to all the music, it just makes you feel excited. Like, I'm excited to go through Mario Odyssey and Mario Galaxy and compile all the songs I like from there into its own playlist. Like, there's just something so fresh about this app that I can't really put my finger on. And it just makes me happy that there's an official way to listen to all this music. I don't have to worry about sourcing it all on YouTube anymore, unless I want to download it and use it in the background of one of my videos, obviously. And also, like I said, I don't use Spotify, so I can't attest to how good or bad its shuffle feature is, but I absolutely love the shuffle that they have here. It's really chaotic. Like, you'll put on one song, and then like 15 minutes later it'll appear again. Like, I love when that happens, especially with my Mario Kart music. Like, I want to hear those songs over and over again anyway, so this is a great way to do that. Just, like I said, everything about this app is perfect, it just needs to keep growing now. So yeah, that was Nintendo's October, one of the weirdest and wildest rides I have had from this company in a good long while, and even though I've had plenty of gripes with some of the things that they've done, I've still enjoyed it. You know, I'm quite skeptical on whether or not November's going to be the month for Switch 2 news, but even if it's not, I have plenty to chew on with just what's released this month, so I'm perfectly happy for now, and I'm glad I got to make this video, just because I think I have a relevant perspective on it all, and it's nice to get it out there, just like with everything else I talk about. So I had a lot of fun with this, and yeah, I hope I wasn't too incomprehensible at any point over my sheer confusion, panic, excitement, all that and all that. But yeah, if you have any questions or concerns, do let me know. Just one of the most underrated features of the music app is definitely the character playlist, just because it's nice to have all of a character's themed tracks in one place. Plus, Wiggler already has a playlist, which I'm so happy for him, even though it's just Maple Tree Way and the Wiggler race music from Wonder. And they probably should have chucked in Madrid Drive as well, because Wiggler was a hazard there. And they're probably going to forget a load of his tracks from future games, but you know, he's there and he's got his own playlist, so like, that's the main thing. Bye bye, have a nice day.